Welcome to another episode of Teenage Tangents. I'm Jelena, and I make this podcast with my friend Rose, somewhere in America. We're high school seniors, and today we're going to be talking about moving on to college. I'm sure a lot of seniors right now, if you're like us, are feeling the bittersweetness of the end of high school, and so today's episode is my thoughts on that, and I'm going to share some pieces of writing, and yeah, hope you enjoy. So in mid-March, I was feeling a lot of angst because really all I could do was wait and hear back from colleges. Like, that was all I could do. So I decided to write an essay about my angst. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it will be illuminating to you at best and interesting at worst to see the inner workings of my mind. I think it's really cool to see how people change even in like a span of 2 months, and also I just think it's a nice piece of writing. Haha. So yeah, here goes. The sun sets at 5:45. It is dark outside. The sky blackens edge to edge, leaving only bright holes in the sky. And the holes, of course, are the stars. But it snowed that night. The sky was holeless, and instead of the expanse of black, it was a muted, creamy gray that hugged the world close. Flakes floated down drowsily, and I stared in wonder from my bedroom window. The same bedroom window I spent staring out of for the last 12 months, observing the same patch of sky, the same crossing of branches, the same sliver of our world. I climbed onto my desk and opened the window. There was no gust of cold wind, no piercing feeling of winter. It felt like I was in a vacuum in space. It was just still. And the only motion that existed was the phantom snow drifting downwards. And that's when I wondered what it would be like to be buried by snow, flake by flake. First my eyelashes and then the rest of my body, covered by the passage of time. I looked at my clock. It was 10 p.m. I could try to find out. So I pulled on my parka and I stepped out of my hermitage. The cold had awakened from her nap and settled comfortably around me. And despite it being long past 5:45, it was not dark. The world was still lucid in a warm glow of white. Street lamps and windows drew yellow geometry on the snowscape and wrapped the more solid things, the branches, the tires, the basketball hoops, together. The flakes of snow moved so fast up close. I knew this by turning my head upwards and letting them aggressively cover my cheeks with cool kisses. Time dilation indicates that minutes pass slower for those moving at a faster speed. A person traveling near the speed of light may experience only a year's time and find, upon their return to Earth, that their loved ones have aged a decade. And since I've been trapped in stillness, time felt like it was passing by too fast, and I just wanted to slow it all down. At that moment, I just wanted to be a snowflake, to be hurling towards the earth while time passed by slowly, like molasses. And that's when I did something stupid. Don't do this at home. I laid down in the middle of the road, and I closed my eyes and let my thoughts run wild, as white flurries attempted to erase me until I was just an appendage of the snowscape. I've not been the best. I spent too much time watching Netflix, and not enough time worrying about the right things. They call it senioritis, but I think I was just angry. I was angry that I spent 90% of my time in my bedroom, like I am now, and although it was by my own design, and I was angry that I spent 4 months selling myself to faceless institutions, aka colleges, that treat prospective freshmen like customers instead of students. But I was more frustrated than I was angry. Frustrated that I sounded too meandering when I wrote, because my words reflected where I was now, lost. And I couldn't get to that deeper level, the why in my writing, the to what end. And I was stuck in endless rounds of contemplation. Most of the time, I was scared that I had made a mistake. I hope I wasn't alone, but at the time, I was really scared that I had wasted my time, that I had neatly tucked all my hopes and dreams into a cardboard box, duct taped it shut, took out a Sharpie, and labeled it college. But as high school comes to its underwhelming end, I was beginning to question. I can't go on like this. And so with that, I got up from the road. The snow had absorbed all traces of sound, leaving only the crunch of fresh snow under my sneakers. I reached a part in my trek where I knew I had to turn back. Home was not far, because snow shrunk the distances between places with its seamless white stitching. And as I retraced my steps, I began to feel something melting. Perhaps I was a runaway train, sitting on some tracks to rust before that night's serendipitous event that started my old engines and launched me forward, not to certain death, but to certain adventure. In those months that felt like decades spent looking at the same patch of sky from my corner of the world would add something to me. Whether it was a burning vengeance, a dormant ambition, or tame patience, I did not know yet. Kierkegaard once said that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And finally, forward sounded like the best option, the only option. And unlike my flurry of college essays, I knew that I couldn't act so sure. I'm in flux, and it was natural. But a part of me knew this, that the long winter will pass, and the snow will melt. The cold waters will sink into the soil, and it will give way to spring. Now it's spring, and in retrospect, I was very dramatic and woeful and angsty, and I am still woeful and dramatic and angsty, but maybe slightly less so and more meditated. It's not like that time just went down the drain. Like, I still don't know exactly what I want to do in the future, but I've come to some comforting conclusions. I know that I want to keep writing. I know that I want to keep exploring videos and films and play with cameras. And I know that I want financial security because immigrant parents, am I right? But I think more than all of those things, I've come to terms with uncertainty. I haven't embraced it. I don't think I will ever be able to, but I think I've come to terms with it. And maybe it's because I finally committed to a college at last, and it also might be that it just took me 1.5 years to get used to a global pandemic, now that we are finally, in America, easing our way out of, fingers crossed. But I think my panic before college decisions was a net positive. You know? At least I'll tell myself that, just to, ease the cognitive dissonance and comfort myself in that I didn't waste an entire month. So my conclusion is basically that I am still struggling, but at least I'm struggling with some more clarity. So if you're watching or listening to this episode right now, and you know me in person, or even if you don't know me in person, I have a message for you that your friends who grew up with you, went to the same school as you, probably share, and that is that. First of all, we made it. Pat on the back, am I right? We're now leaving the nest. It is official. And it's kind of wonderful that I got to know you. We've seen each other's stupid haircuts. We've seen our dumb phases. But more importantly, we've seen who we've all grown into. Adults. Scarily enough. It doesn't feel like it still. And there are no other people who can understand us. This thing that we have. These shared fragments of childhood and adolescence. And I just want to say, I love you for that. That sounds so cheesy. I don't think our imagination was capable enough, although I know that we are very imaginative, to picture how we've grown from naive to less naive, from nerdy to nerdier somehow, and from nasty to maybe a little bit kind. And it makes me sad that I probably won't be seeing you around anymore. But I know from the bottom of my heart that you're gonna be good. And I'm grateful for having to know a good person. Now, to end this segment at last, I would like to share a poem my friend wrote. Her name is Madeline Lorente. It has themes of angst and chaos, but it also have really calming sentiments, and I think teenagers need this. So I'm going to read it now. Hold up, before eat or is a law, ease off and hold your breath that you may. Grant birds the sweet privilege of being your sole lullaby. Feel the delicate ghosts clutch your great hands where they lie. Leave the big words where they glitter on your tongue for today. No vibrations of murmurs, of thoughts, of war will quake you. No storm, no shock will shake you from the sleep. Nothing waits to wake you from serenity. You'll find naught but pink-studded dreams. Don't fear a sheet of dust. Earth won't have peace. You must. So yeah, the world will always be crazy, but I hope you find peace in yourself. And yeah, So you've reached the end of the episode. I can't believe that this is our 5th episode in Teenage Tangents podcast, and I'm so thankful for you joining us on our journey, because it's really cool that Rose and I get to have this almost time capsule of our teenage years, and also just this really weird era of human history. We're gonna be making more episodes over the summer, so be sure to follow us on Spotify and YouTube for upcoming episodes. And I will be seeing you not next week, but the week after that, because we post every 2 weeks. Alright, goodbye.